In 1906, in Oklahoma, Brannigan desperately tries to escape from three ruthless men wearing sheriff badges: Dugan, Stillwell, and their leader, Ketchum. Despite Brannigan's best effort to outrun them, he soon gets shot down and captured. Ketchum harshly kicks Brannigan, demanding to know the whereabouts of another man they're hunting. Brannigan refuses to answer, prompting Ketchum to tie him behind a horse and brutally drag him across the ground. Eventually, Brannigan gives in and reveals the man they want is headed east. But instead of letting him go, Ketchum coldly kills him anyway. At the same time, old Henry McCarty and his teenage son Wyatt are busy working on their peaceful Oklahoma farm. Henry had grown up in New York and wandered the country before settling down as a farmer. Sadly, he lost his wife to tuberculosis, but her brother Al often visits, helping Henry and acting like an uncle to Wyatt. Their quiet farm life is only disrupted by one frequent disagreement. Wyatt dreams of traveling and learning to use a gun, but Henry strictly forbids both. One morning, while father and son are working, they spot a frightened horse running by, its saddle covered in blood but without a rider. Wyatt takes the horse back to their farm, while Henry mounts his own horse and searches the nearby area. Soon, Henry finds an unconscious stranger on the ground named Curry, who has been shot in the shoulder. Henry quickly covers the wound with mud and a handkerchief. He also discovers a gun and a satchel filled with money lying nearby, and instantly realizes he could be stepping into serious trouble. Initially, Henry begins walking away, wanting no involvement, but his conscience won't let him leave Curry behind. He returns, carefully hides any traces that they were there, collects Curry and the belongings, and heads home. At the farm, Henry and Wyatt put Curry in bed and tend his injury. That night, Henry secretly takes the gun and satchel filled with money and hides them in a hidden compartment inside his closet, unaware that Wyatt is quietly watching him through a gap under the door. The next morning, Henry realizes Curry won't survive unless they remove the bullet. He decides to ride into town to fetch a doctor. Before leaving, he ties Curry securely to the bed and places the knife used for cutting ropes on the bedside table within sight. Once his father is gone, Wyatt eagerly heads straight to the hidden closet compartment, examining the satchel filled with cash. He then takes out the gun, excitedly practicing his aim outside by shooting at a bottle, finally hitting it after several attempts. Meanwhile, back inside the house, the sleeping Curry hears the distant gunshots, causing him to dream vividly about the night his home was burned and his family murdered, remembering someone shouting at him to keep his head down. Soon afterward, Wyatt returns the gun to its hiding spot in the closet and curiously opens another box that Henry has hidden away for years. Inside, Wyatt discovers another gun along with newspaper clippings about various crimes. Elsewhere, on Henry's way to town, he spots Ketchum and his men carefully following Curry's trail. Stillwell is an exceptionally skilled tracker and immediately notices that someone has intentionally hidden Curry's tracks, leading Ketchum's group to realize Curry has help. Hearing some noise nearby, Ketchum and his men fire shots into the tall grass, but luckily Henry manages to slip away unnoticed, running back toward home. Back at the farm, Wyatt notices that one of Curry's hands looks loosely tied and partially hidden beneath a blanket. When he pulls the blanket away, Wyatt discovers that Curry had already freed one hand. Seizing this moment, Curry stops pretending to be asleep, grabs the knife from the table, and lunges at Wyatt. He assures the frightened teenager he doesn't want to hurt him. He just wants a satchel of money back. At that exact moment, Henry returns, rushing in to kick Curry away from Wyatt and knocking him unconscious after several punches. After Curry wakes up, he finds himself tied firmly to a chair. Convinced that going into town now is far too dangerous, Henry prepares to remove the bullet himself, heating a knife to sterilize it. As he carefully begins the extraction, he starts questioning Curry about what trouble he's brought into their lives. Curry squirms and cries out in pain as Henry removes the bullet, desperately claiming he's a lawman and warning Henry and Wyatt to run away while they still can. Before Henry has a chance to ask more questions, Ketchum and his men suddenly arrive outside the house. Henry quickly picks up Curry's gun, but realizes it's already been fired, so he swiftly reloads before stepping outside. Ketchum calmly introduces himself as a sheriff, presenting his partners as deputies. He explains that they're chasing Curry, a dangerous criminal pretending to be a sheriff as well. Suspicious, Ketchum starts asking Henry personal questions, becoming particularly interested when Henry says his last name is McCarty, recalling a famous outlaw who once had the same surname. Henry assures him he has no family connections and denies having seen Curry. dismissing Ketchum and his men. Before leaving, Ketchum ominously advises Henry to lock the doors tonight. Back inside, Henry angrily confronts Wyatt for secretly using the gun. Wyatt argues that he had no choice, being the only boy around who'd never been taught how to shoot. Henry slaps him again in anger, prompting Wyatt to shout back, calling his father worthless and promising to leave him behind alone as soon as he's old enough. Deeply hurt, Henry chooses not to respond and instead turns his attention back to Curry. Curry insists that he's the true sheriff and that Ketchum and his men are bank robbers who murdered Curry's deputies and stole their badges. Curry explains he recovered the stolen money but was shot during the chase and collapsed from his horse, waking up later on Henry's farm. Curry admits he can't understand why Ketchum didn't just kill Henry earlier, but he's certain they'll soon return. Nearby, Ketchum and his gang discuss their next move. They don't trust Henry, suspecting he might have made a deal with Curry over the stolen money. Dugan wonders aloud why they didn't just shoot Henry immediately, given they outnumbered him. But Ketchum feels something strange is happening. Henry doesn't act or hold a gun like any farmer he's ever met. Determined to learn more first, Ketchum sends Dugan to secretly watch Henry's farm while he and Stillwell recruit some hired guns and go pay Al, Henry's brother-in-law, a visit. That evening, Henry orders Wyatt inside before nightfall, worried about possible danger. Later, Henry personally feeds Curry some soup, and Curry complains about still being tied up. To see if Curry is trustworthy, Henry questions him about his past. Curry recounts names and places he's worked, names Henry recognizes from his own travels. Curry sincerely apologizes for attacking Wyatt earlier, explaining he was frightened and confused upon waking up in an unfamiliar place. Although Curry finds Henry strangely familiar, Henry firmly denies they've met before. Convinced Curry isn't lying, Henry finally unties one of Curry's hands. To test Curry further, Henry intentionally leaves his gun on the table and turns his back to refill his drink, quietly waiting to see if Curry grabs it. Instead, Curry calmly continues telling stories about his past, especially recalling the night he saw Billy the Kid being shot. Curry now realizes Billy's voice was the one haunting his earlier dreams. Seeing Curry refuse to grab the weapon earns Henry's trust at last. He unties Curry completely, hands back his gun, and instructs him to leave before Ketchum returns. Unfortunately, their conversation abruptly ends when Dugan suddenly opens fire on them through the window. Curry immediately fires back, and Wyatt rushes into the room, getting grazed by a bullet in the chaos. Weakened by his earlier wound, Curry collapses unconscious again, leaving Henry to quickly grab his gun as Dugan crawls beneath the house, shooting through the floorboards each time Henry moves. Determined to take control, Henry hands the gun to Wyatt along with some quick shooting advice. To distract Dugan, who's hidden beneath the house, Henry throws a book onto the floor, making Dugan shoot in the wrong direction. Seizing this chance, Henry swiftly runs to grab his rifle and rushes outside. He fires under the house repeatedly until Dugan panics, emerges, and gets shot in the leg. Henry tackles him, demanding answers, but when Dugan refuses to speak, Henry ends him. To dispose of the body, Henry feeds it to his pigs, noticing a strange gang tattoo on Dugan's skin. Afterward, Henry carefully tends to Wyatt's injury, avoiding his son's persistent questions about his mysterious past. Wyatt bitterly complains that Henry never respects him, which is why Wyatt can't respect his father either. Feeling the sting of Wyatt's words, Henry checks on Curry, who is once again haunted by nightmares of the night his home burned down. Early the next morning, Al goes out bird hunting alone, unintentionally giving Ketchum and Stillwell the perfect chance to confront him. They interrogate Al about Henry, but Al remains loyal and refuses to answer. When Al tries to defend himself, Ketchum knocks him unconscious. Back on the farm, Henry and Wyatt help Curry get dressed, urging him to leave as quickly as possible. Curry, too injured to walk or ride, insists they go without him and leave him to face the approaching threat. Wyatt wants to stay and protect their home, but Henry agrees with Curry, determined to keep his son safe. But the moment they step outside, they're faced with an awful sight. Ketchum and Stillwell have returned, accompanied by a group of hired gunmen. Father and son rush back indoors as Ketchum makes them an offer. If they hand over Curry, he'll spare them. When Henry refuses, Ketchum cruelly reveals that they've captured Al, wounded and bleeding. Furious and ready to fight, Henry grabs his rifle, instructing Wyatt to stay inside and away from the windows, only shooting if he absolutely must. Despite Curry's desperate pleas to be turned over, Henry steps outside to face Ketchum. Ketchum admits he isn't really a sheriff and demands to know Henry's true identity, offering to trade Al for Curry. When Henry again refuses, Ketchum mercilessly kills Al right before their eyes. Enraged by his uncle's death, Wyatt impulsively runs out and starts firing wildly. Henry quickly pulls him back inside, just as the gang returns fire, grazing Curry's leg. Angry at Wyatt's reckless behavior, Henry sternly tells him to keep his head down. Curry, hearing these exact words, suddenly connects his nightmares to reality and realizes Henry's true identity. He's actually Billy the Kid, who survived the night of the fire long ago. Henry ignores Curry's revelation, retrieves his old gun and holster, and prepares for battle. Stepping confidently outside, Henry demonstrates his deadly accuracy, quickly shooting down several gang members. He returns through the window, making a hole big enough for Curry to join the firefight. As the remaining attackers circle the house, Henry sneaks quietly out the back door, armed with a knife. He silently dispatches 2 gunmen before sliding underneath the house and shooting another from below. Emerging from beneath, he encounters Stillwell face to face. Stillwell reaches for his knife, but Henry swiftly kills him before he even has a chance to attack. Now only Ketchum remains, hiding behind the pig pen. Ketchum manages to wound Henry's shoulder, prompting Henry to lure him into the woods. The 2 men trade gunfire from behind trees, but Henry's legendary skills prevail. He hits Ketchum in the leg and shoulder, bringing him down. Approaching to finish the fight, Henry takes one more bullet from Ketchum before finally ending him for good. Thankfully, Henry's injuries aren't fatal, so he returns immediately to the farm. Back inside, Henry checks Curry's injuries more closely, tearing off Curry's sleeve, only to discover a shocking secret. Curry bears the same gang tattoo he saw on Dugan's skin. Caught, Curry instantly shoots Henry. He admits he hadn't technically lied. He was a sheriff once, but a corrupt one, working with Ketchum's gang. He tried to escape when he learned Ketchum planned to betray and kill them, which led to the current chaos. Bleeding heavily, Henry clings to life. Curry eagerly prepares to finish him, excited at the chance to claim he killed Billy the Kid. But before Curry can pull the trigger, Wyatt rushes in and shoots Curry dead. Frantic, Wyatt insists he'll get a doctor, but Henry sadly tells him it's too late. Instead, he shares his final words. Wyatt will hear many stories about Billy the Kid when he travels the world, but only half will be true. Henry admits he wasn't a good man and doesn't believe redemption is possible, yet he's found some peace raising Wyatt to be better than himself. Henry knows he has no place in this changing world, but he believes deeply that Wyatt does. After grieving deeply over his father's death, Wyatt buries Henry beside his mother. Once he's emotionally ready, Wyatt packs up his belongings, mounts his horse, and finally sets out into the world he's always dreamed of exploring.